The ANC says coalitions should be properly regulated to avoid instability in governance. The party has revealed that it may work with the EFF instead of the Democratic Alliance after the 2024 elections. ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa also revealed that the party wants South Africa to pull out of the International Criminal Court. We're now joined for the very latest perspective, by political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe on the ongoings in the country. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time this afternoon. Let's start with this decision, which is not clear to all, that the country will be pulling out of the International Criminal Court. Maybe let's deal with your impression of the court and its work first.
Well, the court has been very clear about its mandate, and one of those is to prosecute those people that have been found to be guilty of what they call war crimes, and of course also genocide. And in this case, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the court has already issued a warrant of arrest for the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. But this has created a dilemma for the ANC as well as for South Africa. On the one end, the South Africa is a signatory of the Rome Statute. It's a member of the International Criminal Court. And the members are obligated to arrest anybody who is found or who is where there's an issue of warrant of arrest. So that is one part, that obligation for South Africa. At the same time, South Africa is also a member of the BRICS summit, BRICS countries, and it will be hosting the summit later this year. And Vladimir Putin, who is the president of Russia, is a member and a significant member of the BRICS. And he has been invited and also has indicated that he wants to come. So it is faced with the dilemma of allowing him to come, but at the same time, it is faced with the responsibility that it has as a signatory to the Rome Statute, and that is to arrest Putin when he arrives. So the ANC has been mulling over this matter, and we've been here before with Al-Bashir when he was in this country, and the former president felt that a sitting president could not be arrested because of the consequences that may arise. And one must also understand that at that time we had our soldiers and our members in a number of countries in Africa, and the fear that the former president had, and also President Mbeki, who was also dealing with issues of peacekeeping and peace resolution, they felt at that time that arresting the president of the Al-Bashir would actually lead to mayhem, and also that some of our soldiers would actually come back in body bags. So as a result of that, South Africa chose not to arrest Al-Bashir, but the matter went to court. So South Africa has little room in this matter because our courts have already pronounced. So this notion of wanting to pull out right now is a bit too late. And of course, there are members of the ANC who had felt and have expressed themselves in this regard. Somebody like Gwede Mantashe, that South Africa made the mistake, they should have pulled out. So all these discussions are discussions to try to resolve the dilemma of hosting the president of Russia, and at the same time being seen to be compliant with the obligation that South Africa faces as a member of the International Criminal Court. So the discussion is really around that matter, and the ANC seems to be schizophrenic in how it wants to resolve this issue. And hence you see statements that have been made that are contradictory. On one moment, the president, who seems to be getting orders from the ANC, issued a statement, and later he had to retract that statement, perhaps based on the noise that emerged as a result of that statement being uttered, that if you do so, you'll be violating the rule of law, you'll also be violating our own obligation as members of the Rome Statute.
There is the standing conversation for a number of years about the fairness of the International Criminal Court when it comes to prosecuting leaders from the continent. And so what is the alternative? Because a number of countries on the continent have also not signed or ratified the Malabo Protocol.
Well, the position that we find ourselves in is that we went into this without reading really what the people call the small print. South Africa was also keen to be part of everything, and they signed without thinking and without looking at the implications of some of the issues that we're signing. Now we find ourselves in this, but the problem is that the ANC itself has not been able to provide the direction. And yes, it is also true that the International Criminal Court itself is not without criticism, because people have been quick to point out, and correctly so, that it seems that the application of this international law is selective. There is a sense that only African countries are targeted. But be that as it may, this is a matter that needs to be resolved, and it has not been resolved. Now we're faced with a situation where the ANC finds itself in the same situation before, when it chose not to resolve that matter, and some members of the ANC made it a Zuma matter. Now that the argument that the former President Zuma was raising, they are now being raised again. But unfortunately, they are raised in an environment where the South Africa is already tight, because should Vladimir Putin come into this country, and should this country choose not to arrest him, it will find itself to have violated its own the rule of law as expressed by the Supreme Court of Appeal, and also as expressed also in our membership as members of the International Criminal Court, and also as signatories of the Rome Statute.
Mm-hmm. Let's take a look at the energy situation in the country. We find ourselves with an electricity minister who was initially introduced as just a project manager. And now it comes out that he does need more powers in order to be able to unlock certain things and get things working around ESCOM. What have you made, or what have you observed around this conversation of the powers of the electricity minister following that NEC meeting?
Well, from the ANC's position, or even from the president has not clearly delineated what will be the mandate. Because if you have a minister, you expect that there will be a ministry that will support that minister. You expect that there will also be a department that will support that minister. The powers are still unclear, to an extent that people see the current minister as simply a project manager. And when you listen to President Ramaphosa, he talks about that the mandate that he's faced with is to deal with the issue of addressing the load shedding. So then people are asking questions that should the load shedding be addressed, will then the minister cease to exist? So these are the challenges that President Ramaphosa had not almost provided clarity on. Effectively, in introducing the Minister of Electricity, it was very clear that this matter was never discussed among members of cabinet or within the ANC. It was one of those measures that the Ramaphosa presidency takes, that you take decisions so as to be seen to be doing something. Now we find ourselves where you have a minister who is unclear about his work. You have 3 ministers that are supposed to be dealing with this issue of energy. And the description or explanation that the president has actually given is to say this one deals with load shedding, this one deals with governance, this one deals with regulations. And yet you find in many departments will deal with all those 3 things. But this is an attempt by the president to be seen to be doing something, but unfortunately it has rendered the Minister of Electricity unclear about where does his mandate start and ends. And as we speak, we don't even have an oversight on this ministry, because when you think about all other departments, there will always be a portfolio committee that is linked to that ministry to be able to check whether the ministry is doing what it's fulfilling its mandate, and whether the resources of the state are used properly. At the moment, we are still unclear, because this was one of those knee-jerk reaction by President Ramaphosa. He took that decision so that people could say he's actually doing something. But what we know is that despite the appointment of the Minister of Electricity, things have not become better. If anything, we are told that we should brace ourselves for the worst things to come, for a very cold winter.
Professor Seepe, before we let you go, who has the ear of the king? As you mentioned, some decisions are made without the rest of the party knowing. And so who has the attention, or who is commanding the attention of the king and advising him? Is it clear to you?
Well, the issue is that the presidency has constitutional responsibilities to lead government. But we also have what we call supposedly a ANC-led government, where the ANC has defined itself as a strategic center, where the ANC will come out with policy and the people deployed in government will follow that policy. But there are times when we see the government leading the ANC, where decisions are made without the ANC having been, without those ideas having been canvassed within the ANC. For instance, the issue of coal. We saw the president being praised by people like President Biden of the U.S. for agreeing to the fast-tracking of the decommissioning of our plants. And in the last meeting of the ANC has come up with a position that says the decommissioning must be delayed. So you see that when you have a president who acts without seeking an opinion or canvassing an opinion among his members of his party, you find the president having to face the situation where he appears to be undermined by the party. Now there is an issue of delay. And you also know positions of people like Mantashe, who has been very clear about his stance on the issue of coal. So the ANC has not been able to ventilate these issues clearly for itself to know where it stands. On one moment, the orator was being praised for pushing the agenda of renewables until he spoke. Then he found himself in trouble and being told that your job was to deal with load shedding, but you've been gallivanting around the world promoting renewables. Now the ANC has clarified its position around the fact that coal will be the mainstay in terms of energy generation in this country.
Professor Sipho Seepe, thank you very much, sir, for your time this afternoon.